Hey guys, welcome to the Domain of Neo. Today we will be breaking down the character of Blackbeard in the light of type theory and also the chapter 1127 in detail. At first, I shall be going over the personality of Blackbeard and then we will be covering the key moments, character development and some hidden details you might have missed in the latest chapter. Whether you've already read it or are just catching up, we'll dive into everything. So make sure to stick around until the end for my final thoughts on how this chapter fits into the bigger story. Without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. In the real world, Blackbeard refers to Edward Teach or Tatch, one of the most notorious and feared pirates of the earlier 18th century during the golden age of piracy. Blackbeard's name was synonymous with fear and chaos. His appearance, often depicted with burning fuses in his beard to create an aura of terror, amplified his fearsome reputation in both history and legend. Blackbeard used psychological warfare, ensuring his reputation was so fearsome that many ships surrendered without a fight. He was not just a brute force, he was also a tactician. His calculated and methodical strategies made him highly effective as a pirate leader. One notable example of the real Blackbeard's tactical brilliance occurred during his blockade of Charleston, South Carolina in May 1718. Rather than immediately demanding treasure, Blackbeard made a strategic and unusual demand. He requested a chest of medical supplies. Once his demands were met, Blackbeard and his fleet sailed away without any significant confrontation. This event showed his ability to leverage psychological tactics and diplomacy to achieve his goals, making him a shrewd strategist, not just a violent pirate. Now that we've touched on the inspiration, it's time to get into the heart of the matter. Marshall D. Teach. Teach as an antagonist stands out among the already great villains that we have already had in One Piece. If there was one quote that encapsulated the essence of his character, it would be a dreamer who can't dream. If I were to ask you when was the last time you had dreams, you might say that while sleeping on this day a dream occurred to you, but notice one thing, in each one of your responses, one common thing would be that the dream occurred to you while you were sleeping. Here, look at this panel of Teach. What a truly iconic panel. Imagine introducing a character whose love of dream is meant to mirror that of the series' main lead. But then we are told that allegedly this guy doesn't even sleep. I was perplexed by this revelation. Visions are dangerous things. Although they have the power to bring forth emperors from literal dust, they also possess enough potency to render us paranoid and could even lead to madness. If any of you guys have watched Game of Thrones, look no further than the Mad King. Now why do I point this out? For individuals such as Teach, their minds are in a constant flux of motion, always forming patterns and looking at future possibilities in a never-ending cycle. For this reason, it is so much more important for such individuals to actually have checks in place to not overextend this gift of theirs. Otherwise, it could also lead to the inability of their brains to differentiate fiction from reality. This will be further apparent once I delve further into Teach psychology. I ascribe Teach as an ENFP. Now why do I do that? But first, let me give an introduction to the type of ENFP to those who have heard of it for the first time. An ENFP is a type of personality characterized by being enthusiastic, creative, and outgoing. They are often described as people-persons who enjoy connecting with others and exploring new ideas. They are usually curious and like to think outside the box, often coming up with innovative solutions or interesting projects. They value their freedom and individuality, preferring to follow their passions rather than conforming to strict rules or routines. At their best, they inspire and motivate others, but they can sometimes struggle with commitment or following through on their many ideas. Now that I have given you guys the general essence of an ENFP, let us break it down further in context to Teach. To do that, we must first talk about cognitive functions. Cognitive functions are the different ways our mind processes information and make decisions. Each personality type, like ENFP, has a unique set of these functions that describe how they think, feel, and interact with the world. For example, some people focus more on facts and logic, while others prioritize emotions and personal values. But in reality, there exists an interplay between these two modes of thinking. These functions help explain why people behave differently and how they approach challenges and relationships. Although there exist 8 cognitive functions, the primary functions include the first 4 that make up the personality type. For the ENFP personality type, their stack goes like NE extroverted intuition, FI introverted feeling, TE extroverted thinking, SI introverted sensing. If you are getting confused, I would recommend to stick around a bit longer and everything will make sense to you. But if there is something that still doesn't make sense to you, definitely let me know in the comments. To understand Teach's mind in detail, we must first break down each of the 4 cognitive functions and how they play a role in the makeup of Teach personality. Extroverted intuition generally focuses on exploring ideas, possibilities, and patterns in the external world. In its essence, it can be understood as brainstorming aloud. Extroverted intuition works to gather information. It goes beyond or looks behind sense data, which allows it to discern otherwise hidden patterns, possibilities, and potential. Blackbeard's NE is visible in his opportunistic and expansive vision. He is constantly scanning the world for possibilities, aiming high with his dreams of becoming the Pirate King. Like an ENFP who is driven by possibilities, Teach sees beyond the immediate situation to potential outcomes, such as targeting the most powerful devil fruits or exploiting weaknesses in powerful organizations like the Marines. His ability to think outside the box is evident in his plan to betray Whitebeard, join the 7 warlords, and later disrupt the balance of power in the world. NE also manifests in his adaptability and readiness to pivot when opportunities arise. For instance, his capture of Ace was not initially part of his plan, but he recognized its potential to secure his place as a warlord. I would even go as far as to claim that the plan to steal away Whitebeard's fruit was devised as soon as Ace had refused his offer. Mind. This ability to reframe situations for his benefit is typical of strong NE users. Now, in contrast to an ENTP, which is another NE dominant personality type, the point is for ENFPs to find their way to a judgment, FI. They know that in time that truth or wisdom will reveal itself. In case of Blackbeard, this truth is absolute freedom or anarchism. One of introverted feelings' primary concern is the development of a personalized worldview, independent of societal conventions. It focuses more on personal taste and values. Blackbeard's internal values are centered around his belief in freedom and ambition. His famous line, "People's dreams never end," captures the deep individualistic drive of an FI user. Driven by a personal sense of destiny, he sees no moral contradiction in doing whatever is necessary to achieve his goals. This makes him morally flexible, as his decisions are based on what feels right to him rather than an external code of ethics. In the ENFP, FI is often associated with an intense personal belief system, and for Blackbeard, this translates into a deep conviction that his pursuit of power is justified. He embraces chaos and personal freedom, reflecting a subjective sense of what is important regardless of how it affects others. Because FI is introverted, outsiders may not have easy access to an ENFP's emotions, but they do express their feeling judgments somewhat indirectly through their third extroverted thinking function. This may at times lead others to view ENFPs as thinking types, disguising the complex feelings that are actually the driving factor under the carpet. Extroverted thinking involves the outward expression of rational judgments and opinions. Blackbeard's TE shows up in his ability to strategize and execute plans with cold efficiency. Though he is known for his wild and chaotic personality, his underlying logic is clear. His plan to infiltrate Whitebeard's crew for years only to steal the yummy no mi when the opportunity arose reflects long-term planning and a calculated use of resources. Since TE is ENFP's preferred extroverted judging function and falls lower in their function stack, it can sometimes be less refined compared to other types. But in Blackbeard, it shows up when necessary, especially in achieving concrete goals. His methodical approach in gathering the strongest crew, stealing powerful devil fruits, and exploiting wild events displays the effectiveness of this function. If you look at these two panels, in the first panel we see a very young Teach crying, and in the next panel we see a slightly aged Teach. Here we see a very serious looking Teach, which is in contrast to his late very jovial personality. I think something really bad had occurred to Teach's family and he had barely been able to survive, and thus, unlike other typical ENFPs, to protect himself, his TE, although being a tertiary function, superseded his auxiliary FI, and thus we see a very young serious Teach. But as he grew, he got comfortable with his FI, and thus we got his very traditional ENFP mannerisms. Introverted sensing uses information from the past to inform the present. It is attuned to past ways of doing things, engendering a concern for preserving certain traditions and conventions. ENFPs can be readily blinded to the degree to which their inferior function impacts their decisions and behavior. In case of Blackbeard, his SI shows up in his respect for certain traditions and structures, such as his desire to become Pirate King and replace the old era with himself. SI is best understood in juxtaposition with its functional opposite, NE. NE is concerned with exploring new ideas and possibilities, while SI sees clearly defined limits as predetermined by past precedent. ENFPs tend to consciously identify with the needs and values of their NE, while their subconscious rallies for the values and desires associated with SI. Although SI is Blackbeard's inferior function, it plays a role in how he connects his ambitions to the legacy of pirates like Roger or Whitebeard, referencing the established paths toward power. While SI is often about recalling and learning from the past, for Blackbeard, it manifests more in holding on to ideas from history that serve his grand vision. He seems aware of how past events like the Void Century and the power of the ancient weapons influence current opportunities, even if he doesn't dwell on them deeply. Now that we have gone over the four primary cognitive functions that make up Teach's psyche, let us now try to create a complete picture of him. Teach is a person who openly takes bold risks, but is only comfortable enough if and only if his NE and TE can show him coming out on top. But if a situation arises which goes beyond his intuition, although the chances of him not coming out on top are minute, they still exist. His lack of direct engagement with the present moment, i.e. SE, coupled with overanalyzing potential outcomes, reveals the cowering person that he really is deep down, and therefore it is in his nature to always exploit others when they are at their weakest. The greatest example of this was him finally deciding to show up when he was 100% sure that now with his injuries, Whitebeard will surely die. In many ways, Blackbeard's ENFP personality makes him a fascinating and a multi-dimensional character. His boundless enthusiasm for adventure, his ability to inspire his crew, and his vision for something greater than himself all reflect the core traits of an ENFP. Yet, it's his complexity, his idealism mixed with unpredictability, and his emotional depth intertwined with tactical cunning that sets him apart as a force to be reckoned with, whether in the world of One Piece or in any narrative. With that, we are done with our analysis of Teach. If there is any other character that you would like to be analyzed, definitely let me know in the comments below. And now I shall be reviewing chapter 1127. So if any of you guys don't wish to be spoiled, I would recommend skipping this part. I almost burst out laughing as soon as I read Luffy confirm that they ate the sacred rabbit god of the giants. Imagine the look on the face of the giants when they realize that their sacred deities are being consumed left and right by these foreign humans. By the way, Nami looked really nice in the new Viking dress. I will most likely draw her for the next peak review, so definitely stay tuned for that. Many are theorizing that probably the Straw Hats are hallucinating. They point out the cat changing into the lion, then simultaneously turning back into the cat again, as probable reasons of them hallucinating. But for now, I am not sold on this. Even if the Straw Hats even were to have been under hallucination, that still would not explain the situation with the giants. Other than that, this chapter was quite brief, and as such I shall wait for the upcoming chapters to start theorizing myself. By the way guys, feel free to check out my Instagram. Since my commission website is currently under development, you can contact me directly on Instagram for any inquiries. If you're a fan of either Jujutsu Kaisen or Naruto, then stay tuned. Their respective reviews will be out shortly. And if there exists any character who you would like to be analyzed in detail, just like Blackbeard and Sukuna, then let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll be back next week with another One Piece review. If you're a fan, I recommend subscribing so my new video shows up directly in your feed. But don't forget to turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Please let me know in the comments of what you think of this chapter. I would love to hear your thoughts.